Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blue Seat. This is our second segment, and we are so honored to have Representative Ausley joining us in the Blue Seat to tell us a little bit more about advocacy. And for those of you who don't know, Representative Ausley has been on a number of boards. She's also started, one of the starting or co-founders of the Oasis Center, among numerous things. And I personally know Representative Ausley from her dedication to the March of Dimes when her son Will was born.
Right.
And he's now a thriving teenager, if I understand correctly.
16.
Oh, bless you. Dealing with a teenager at home. But we're going to get started again, the focus being on advocacy and how nonprofits can do a better job with that. And my first question for Representative Ausley, also known as Rep, is this wonderful article that I happened to find. It was in the November Nonprofit Quarterly, and the article addresses advocacy as a nonprofit core competency. So what can organizations hope to gain by allocating resources to grassroots lobbying?
So, I'm really glad you brought that article up because I looked at it, and it's really, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about this question of the nonprofit sector and the interaction with the government sector. But it's really important, and it's important, I think, for nonprofits, and I think this article is very clear about this, to know what the laws are, to know what type of organization you have, but not to be afraid of advocating, because so much of what all of our nonprofits they're in the business of advocating for those who don't have a voice and preserving those who don't have a voice. And that I think the individual voices of nonprofits on their specific issues and advocacy around those, as well as the collective voices of the nonprofit community, can play very important roles.
Excellent. That same article, Representative Ausley, states that funding for important programs hang in the balance, including grant programs are being eliminated or redefined, and much needed legislation and appropriations are being held hostage by both state legislatures and the U.S. Congress. It also states on a national level how there are proposed changes in the tax code that would eliminate charitable deductions for more donors, which is a huge concern in the nonprofit sector. So what are your opinions regarding these changes and how they may impact our local nonprofits?
Well, I think it's really important for nonprofits to understand that we're getting squeezed from every side here. First of all, there are programmatic changes and funding changes, and more it seems that state and local and federal governments are really forcing nonprofits to the pie is getting smaller, and everyone's having to fight for limited resources. At the same time, we're also making changes at the state level and at the federal level that make it harder for nonprofits to raise the money that they need to. So sort of squeezing from all ends. So I don't know what the answer is. I think it's important to understand what these things are happening. Even here in Florida, just in the past couple of years, the whole state employee charitable campaign has gone away. So it used to be back in the day, the local United Way and local nonprofits, it was a big morale boost for the state agencies to get involved in the state employee charitable campaign all year long. They would compete against each other. They'd have bake sales, and they would be building morale within their agencies while also having an outlet to support the nonprofits in our community. That charitable campaign was ended. There's just been a move away from that sort of fundraising, and it's unfortunate. So that it's a whole source of resources that at the state level, and then of course there's federal changes with itemized deduction and other potential changes down the pike. So we have to be really strategic and looking at what's happening and being very creative about how to be able to serve our populations.
Well, on that note, that's a perfect segue into the next question. Is, in your opinion, name 3 things that nonprofit organizations can do to capture a listening ear of their legislatures?
So I think the first thing is, it's never too early to start. So while I know there's a gray area about campaigns, but there is an education aspect of that nonprofits can can fill a void for candidates who are, trying to learn about the issues. I would shy away from the questionnaires where, a lot of folks say, what are your issues, and what is your position on these 10 things? And candidates, without having the knowledge, are sometimes hesitant to do that. But I think sitting down with folks, going to debates and public forums, and educating about the issues around the population that serve is very important. Number two, I would say, make sure that you get to know your elected officials, not just the members themselves, but their staff. Staff is very important, and that is an ongoing process. It is, not just during the legislative session, because especially for your legislators, we're in our community all throughout the year, and I love the opportunity to go out and visit and find out what's going on with all sorts of businesses in my community. So invite your member to come see what you do. Let them have hands-on experience and see the folks that you serve, and be very specific about outcomes. So that's two. The third, I think, is to be when you're advocating, within the confines of the law, be very specific about what the solutions are, and come with solutions, not just here's the problem, but let's think together about what the solutions might be.
Love it. Thank you. And how do you see the relationship among nonprofit sectors and the political sectors? Where do you see that relationship going within the next 10 years? You just started off with never really equated those
right.
two.
And I found a really interesting, I brought my iPad, because I found a really interesting, I don't know how old this is, but a piece that the Aspen Institute did about nonprofit sector and government, clarifying the relationship. And there's a lot of good information in here, really, that it was a number of folks in the nonprofit world that looks like they spend a lot of time on this. But talk about the principles. Regulation and accountability is really important, and that's the government's role. But you don't want to go too far. But I think in the next steps, they talk about one of the most valued qualities of nonprofit is their ability to take initiative, act on their own to respond to human needs, and to do so without the need for official government approval. At the same time, while nonprofits can and do accomplish much on their own, they can often accomplish even more in cooperation with governments. I think that was a really nice way to say there is a really important role, but it can't go too far. And I think it's up to, again, the individual voices of nonprofits and the collective voice of the nonprofit community to advocate and find that balance.
Mm-hmm, I agree. And then my last question for you is, as a citizen, how would you respond to a nonprofit organization that may be considered too political? Because that's always a fear in the nonprofit world, and I think that's the reservation of going into advocacy, is the fear that donors may perceive that nonprofit as being too political.
Yeah, I think, again, know what type of organization you have and what your limitations are, but your role as nonprofits is to advocate for the people or the issues that you serve, and as long as you're staying within that mission, I think it's really, your voice is very important. And I would not, I would say, be an advocate, be that voice, be the voice for those who you serve.
Excellent. And my last question for you, I have just a gazillion of them, but just on a personal favorite color.
Oh, I can't. That lime green. Here it is.
Lime green.
This is, anybody who knows me knows that that's my favorite color. Everything, I can't believe I have nothing on in that color, but that is my favorite color.
Excellent. Favorite flower.
Oh, hydrangea.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rep. We appreciate it.
Thank you.